The black dragon hatchling was born in silence. No cheers. No celebration. Only disgust. Around him, the white-scaled alien nobles stared as if he were a disease. Then the High Elder stepped forward, looked into the baby's glowing red eyes, and ordered something that shocked the entire galaxy. Throw it into the void pit. The tiny dragon had done nothing wrong. He had only been born different. But what none of them knew was that this rejected hatchling would survive. And one day, he would return to sit on the throne of the entire galaxy. On the ancient planet of Velcaris, dragon birth was the greatest event in the galaxy. It happened only once every 1,000 years. When the royal bloodline produced a new heir, entire star systems stopped everything to witness it. Across thousands of worlds, giant screens lit up with the same image. The Crystal Nest Hall. A place so sacred that even emperors lowered their heads before entering. That day, the hall shined brighter than ever. Massive crystal pillars stretched high into the sky. Their glowing light reflected across polished black floors like frozen stars. Rows of alien kings sat in perfect silence. War generals from distant galaxies stood proudly in their battle armor. Planetary rulers whispered among themselves, waiting for the moment history would begin again. At the center of the hall rested the royal egg. It was enormous, larger than a battle tank. Pure white with glowing silver lines moving across its surface like living lightning. Everyone already knew what was inside. Another perfect white dragon. Another heir blessed by the stars. Another ruler destined to lead Velcaris for the next 1,000 years. The Dragon King stood tall beside the egg. His scales gleamed like polished ivory. Beside him stood the Dragon Queen, her wings folded tightly as she stared at the egg with nervous excitement. The High Elder raised his ancient staff toward the ceiling. The hall fell completely silent. Then the first crack appeared. A sharp sound echoed across the chamber. Then another. And another. The glowing shell began to split apart. The alien crowd leaned forward. Some smiled. Others held their breath. This was the moment they had waited centuries to see. The shell finally shattered. And everything changed. Silence hit the hall like a wave. No one moved. No one breathed. Inside the broken shell lay a tiny dragon hatchling. But he was not white. His scales were black. Not dark gray. Not silver touched by shadow. Pure black. Darker than deep space. Darker than the endless void between galaxies. His body seemed to absorb the crystal light around him. And his eyes burned bright crimson, like twin stars glowing with quiet fire. A shocked whisper escaped the crowd. Then another. Then suddenly the entire hall erupted into fearful murmurs. Impossible. A cursed bloodline. A defect. The word spread through the chamber like poison. The Dragon Queen stepped back in horror. Her claws trembled. The Dragon King stared at the hatchling as if he were looking at something unnatural. Something wrong. Among the dragon nobles of Velcaris, black scales carried an ancient shame. A superstition older than memory. Legends claimed black dragons brought ruin, weakness, collapse. For thousands of years, no black dragon had ever been allowed to live. The tiny hatchling looked around the room. His red eyes blinked slowly, confused, searching for warmth, searching for comfort. He gave a soft cry, a small helpless sound. But instead of kindness, he was met with disgust. The High Elder stepped forward, his face cold as stone. He looked down at the newborn and raised his staff. This hatchling is unworthy of the royal bloodline. His voice thundered through the hall. He carries the mark of darkness. He is cursed. The sentence is clear. Cast him into the void pit. Gasps filled the chamber. But no one objected. Not even his parents. The Dragon Queen turned her face away. The Dragon King said nothing. 2 royal guards moved forward. They lifted the tiny hatchling from the broken shell. The baby cried louder now. His little wings struggled weakly. His claws reached out into empty air, looking for anyone at all. But no one came. No one except one person. At the edge of the chamber stood Elias. A young human servant no one ever noticed. Humans were considered lesser beings on Velcaris, useful only for labor and obedience. Elias had spent years cleaning royal halls and serving dragon nobles who barely looked at him. But when he saw the hatchling, something inside him shifted. He looked into those glowing red eyes, and he saw something the others could not. Pain, fear, and beneath it all, power. Not darkness, not evil, potential. As the guards carried the crying hatchling toward the tunnel leading to the void pit, Elias made his choice. His heart pounded violently. If he was caught, he would be executed. No trial, no mercy. But he could not stand there and watch an innocent life be thrown away. The moment the guards passed through a narrow crystal corridor, Elias moved. Fast, silent. He triggered the emergency blackout system hidden in the wall. Instant darkness flooded the passage. The guards shouted in confusion. Before they could react, Elias rushed forward. He grabbed the hatchling tightly against his chest. The tiny dragon stopped crying for a moment, almost as if he understood. Alarms screamed through the palace. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Run! One of the guards shouted. But Elias was already gone. He sprinted through the dark halls of Velcaris with a black dragon hatchling in his arms. And behind him, the entire royal empire began the hunt for the boy and the dragon they had tried to erase from history. The stolen cargo ship tore through the darkness of space like a hunted ghost. Its engines groaned with every jump through hyperspace. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. The ship was old, damaged, barely holding together. But Elias pushed it harder. Behind him, the royal fleet of Velcaris searched every nearby system. If they found him, both he and the hatchling would die. Wrapped tightly inside his coat, the tiny black dragon trembled. His small body shook with fear and cold. His red eyes stayed wide open, watching everything, trusting no one. Elias glanced down at him and tightened his grip. For the first time in his life, he was responsible for something greater than himself. He looked at the hatchling and whispered the name that came to him in that moment. Nyrax. The little dragon blinked slowly, as if accepting it. And from that moment on, he was no longer just a rejected hatchling. He had a name, a future, a chance. After weeks of running through forgotten star routes, Elias found refuge on an abandoned moon called Orin. It was a dead place. Cold wind screamed across endless gray rock. No cities, no life, no reason for anyone to visit. Which made it perfect. Hidden deep inside an old mining station, Elias built their home. It was small, broken, always freezing. But it was safe. And safety was something Nyrax had never known. In the beginning, the hatchling barely moved. He stayed curled in the corner of the room, silent, watching everything with cautious eyes. Even when Elias brought him food, Nyrax hesitated, as if waiting for pain to follow kindness. The fear ran deep. Though he had only lived for moments inside the Crystal Nest Hall, rejection had already marked him. Some wounds were born instantly. Elias understood that. So he never forced trust. He simply stayed. Day after day. He fed Nyrax by hand, covered him with warm blankets during the freezing nights, spoke to him softly, told him stories of distant stars and worlds he had once dreamed of visiting. Slowly, the little dragon began to change. The silence faded first, then the fear. Nyrax started following Elias through the station, watching him repair machines, curiously tapping at broken tools with his claws. Within months, he was learning faster than anything Elias had ever seen. By his first year, Nyrax could understand complex commands. By his second, he could solve mechanical problems that left Elias speechless. And he kept growing. His black scales became smoother and stronger, shimmering under moonlight like moving galaxies. His wings stretched wider each month. His crimson eyes burned brighter. There was something different about him. Something extraordinary. He was not cursed. He was gifted. When Nyrax was old enough, Elias took him beyond Orin. Disguised beneath heavy cloaks, they visited nearby trade cities for supplies. At first, Nyrax was excited. The bright towers, the crowded markets, the sounds of alien life all around him. He wanted to see everything, to belong somewhere. But reality hit hard. The moment his hood slipped back and his black scales were revealed, the stares began. Then the whispers. Then the laughter. White dragon citizens sneered openly. Alien merchants refused to serve him. Children pointed and threw stones. Cursed dragon. Monster. Void spawn. The words followed him everywhere. Once, a city guard shoved him hard enough to knock him into the street. The guard looked down with disgust and said black dragons were not welcome among civilized beings. Nyrax rose slowly. His claws clenched. His eyes burned with fury. He was already strong enough to tear the guard apart. The crowd stepped back, expecting violence. But then Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. The simple touch stopped him. That night, as they sat beneath the stars outside the city walls, Nyrax asked the question that had haunted him for years. Why do they hate me? Elias looked at him for a long moment. Then he answered, because fear is easier than understanding. Nyrax lowered his head. His voice was quiet. How do I make them stop? Elias gave him words Nyrax would carry forever. Power is not proving them right through fear. Power is proving them wrong through greatness. The young dragon said nothing. But he never forgot. Years passed. Nyrax grew into something remarkable. Stronger than any dragon his age. Smarter than scholars. Faster than military drones. And yet he carried himself with calm control. Then one night, everything changed. A message appeared on every screen across the galaxy. The Galactic Emperor was dying. For the first time in history, the next ruler would not be chosen by bloodline. A universal trial would decide who would take the throne. Any being from any world could compete. The strongest, the wisest, the worthiest would rule the galaxy. Elias read the message in silence. Then he turned toward Nyrax. The black dragon stood outside the station, looking up at the stars. The same stars that had watched his rejection. The same stars that had hidden his survival. For a long moment he said nothing. Then slowly, for the first time in his life, Nyrax smiled. And in that smile burned the beginning of destiny. The Imperial Arena was larger than most cities. Built at the center of the galactic capital, it floated high above the planet on massive gravity engines. Its walls were forged from star metal. Its towers touched the clouds. And on the day of the trials, every seat was filled. Billions watched from screens across the galaxy. Kings, generals, war champions, master strategists, creatures from worlds no human had ever seen. They had all come for one reason: to witness the choosing of the next Galactic Emperor. Thousands had entered. Only one would leave as ruler of the stars. The moment Nyrax stepped into the arena beside Elias, the noise began. At first it was whispering, then gasps, then laughter so loud it rolled through the stadium like thunder. There he is. The cursed hatchling survived. Look at him. They actually let him enter. This will be entertaining. High above in the royal observation chamber sat the white dragon nobles of Velcaris. The same nobles who had ordered his death. The same faces twisted with mockery years ago. Even his birth family was there. The Dragon Queen stared at him with cold disbelief. The Dragon King smirked as if watching a joke unfold. To them, Nyrax was still nothing. Still the mistake they had failed to erase. But Nyrax showed no anger, no fear. He stood calm and silent. His black scales reflected the arena lights like moving galaxies. His crimson eyes fixed only on the trials ahead. Beside him, Elias gave a small nod. That was enough. The first challenge began. Combat. One by one, contestants entered the central battle ring. The strongest warriors from across known space. Massive war beasts. Veteran dragon fighters. Cybernetic gladiators built for destruction. Nyrax was matched against a titan from Kravos. A creature twice his size with steel claws and enough raw power to crush stone with a single strike. The crowd expected the black dragon to be torn apart in seconds. The battle horn sounded. The Titan charged. The ground shook beneath its weight. Nyrax did not move. Not until the final second. Then he vanished. He leapt upward with impossible speed, twisting through the air, using the Titan's own momentum against it. One precise strike to the neck joint. The giant collapsed instantly. The arena fell silent, then erupted. Shock spread across every face. Round after round, Nyrax advanced. He faced larger opponents, faster opponents, more experienced killers, and defeated all of them, not through brute force, but through perfect control, perfect timing, perfect thought. He fought like every movement had already been calculated before the battle even began. The laughter faded. The second challenge followed. Strategy. Contestants were placed inside the War Nexus, a living simulation system designed to create impossible battlefield scenarios. Entire civilizations had lost real wars to the calculations it produced. Even military artificial intelligences struggled to solve its patterns. Each contestant was given command of a fleet. Their mission was simple: win. The best minds of the galaxy entered with confidence, and failed within minutes. Then Nyrax stepped forward. The simulation began. Enemy fleets surrounded him from every direction. Ambushes closed every escape route. Probability of victory: 0.2%. The machine announced. The audience watched closely, expecting collapse. Instead, Nyrax smiled. His claws moved across the command interface faster than any being could follow. He sacrificed half his fleet, redirected energy fields, created false retreat signals, and lured the enemy into their own trap. Within 6 minutes, he had achieved total victory. The War Nexus froze, then displayed words no one had ever seen before. Fastest strategic victory in recorded Imperial history. Even the military AIs had taken 22 minutes. Nyrax had done it in 6. The galaxy erupted into stunned applause. The White Dragon nobles no longer laughed. They watched in growing horror. Challenge after challenge passed. And still Nyrax advanced. The impossible was happening. The rejected hatchling was becoming the strongest contender for the throne. Then came the final test. The Void Maze. The moment the name was announced, silence fell over the arena. Every being in the galaxy knew its legend. It was not simply a maze. It was death itself. A shifting abyss deep beneath the capital. A place of darkness so complete it swallowed sound. Walls moved without warning. Paths changed every second. Those who entered often never returned. For Nyrax, it was more than a challenge. It was memory. It was the place he had been condemned to as a newborn. The darkness meant to erase him before he ever lived. One by one, contestants entered. Most never made it out. Some returned broken and terrified. A few died inside. Then Nyrax stepped forward. Without hesitation. Without fear. He entered the abyss. Darkness swallowed him instantly. But Nyrax remembered darkness. He remembered cold fear. He remembered helpless cries ignored by the world. And this time, he was no helpless hatchling. Inside the maze, he moved with purpose. Every shifting wall, every hidden trap, every deadly turn. He crossed them all as if the void itself recognized him. Minutes later, the impossible happened. The far gate exploded open. Nyrax emerged, unharmed, calm, victorious. And above the arena, the timer froze. Fastest completion in Imperial history. For several long seconds, no one made a sound. The cursed hatchling stood at the center of the arena. Alive, unbroken, triumphant, and for the first time, the White Dragon nobles felt something they had never imagined feeling toward him. Fear. The entire galaxy could feel it. History was about to change. After conquering every challenge of the Imperial trials, Nyrax stood only one step away from the throne. By law, the final ceremony would begin at sunrise. And unless something changed, The black dragon they once called cursed would be crowned Galactic Emperor. The thought alone filled the white dragon nobles with terror. Inside the highest towers of the capital, hidden behind sealed crystal walls, they gathered in secret. The Dragon King stood at the center, his face dark with rage. Around him sat the oldest and most powerful nobles of Velcaris. None of them could accept what was coming. Their system, their bloodline, their centuries of control. All of it was slipping away, because of the hatchling they had failed to destroy. Then one noble spoke the words that changed everything. "Take the human." Silence followed. Then slow smiles spread across the chamber. They all knew what Elias meant to Nyrax. The human was his weakness. His only weakness. That same night, while the city celebrated below, royal guards moved through the shadows. Elias never saw them coming. One moment he was preparing for the ceremony. The next, a stun blast struck his back. He collapsed instantly. When he opened his eyes again, cold chains held him upright inside the ancient throne chamber. The oldest room in the Empire. A place where rulers were crowned. And where traitors were broken. Hours later, Nyrax received the message. Withdraw from the final ceremony, or the human dies. No signature was needed. He already knew who sent it. The walk to the throne chamber was silent. No guards stopped him. No alarms sounded. The great crystal doors slowly opened on their own. And there, waiting beneath the glowing throne, stood the Dragon King. His birth father. Beside him hung Elias. Bruised, chained, but alive. The moment Elias saw Nyrax, he shook his head. "Do not do this." His eyes warned. "Do not surrender for me." Nyrax stepped forward slowly. His crimson eyes locked on the king. The chamber was empty except for them. Or so it seemed. The Dragon King studied him carefully. For the first time, there was no mockery in his face. Only cold calculation. "You have surpassed every expectation." His deep voice echoed through the hall. Nyrax said nothing. The king continued. "You deserve to know the truth." He descended the crystal steps of the throne. For centuries, the royal bloodline hid an ancient prophecy. One written before our empire was born. It spoke of a black dragon. A ruler unlike any other. One who would surpass all kings and reshape the galaxy. The king's eyes narrowed. That prophecy terrified us. Because such power could destroy everything we built. That is why black hatchlings were erased. Not because they were weak. Because they were feared. The words hit Nyrax like ice. His entire life. The hatred. The rejection. The cruelty. It had never been about weakness. It had been fear. The Dragon King extended one massive claw toward him. "Join us. Rule beside us. Take your rightful place. Together we can preserve order. Continue the system. Protect the Empire as it has always been protected." Nyrax looked past him. At Elias. Still chained. Still suffering because of their fear. And suddenly memories flooded through him. The stones thrown by alien children. The guards calling him cursed. The laughter inside the arena. The countless beings judged simply for being different. Then he remembered Elias's words beneath the stars. Power is proving them wrong through greatness. Nyrax lifted his head. And gave his answer. "No." The word cracked through the chamber like thunder. For a heartbeat, everything stood still. Then the Dragon King's face hardened. "So be it." At once, hidden walls shattered open. Dozens of royal nobles emerged. Armored guards poured into the chamber. Energy weapons charged. Crystal blades ignited. The trap was complete. "Tack!" The Dragon King roared. The chamber exploded into chaos. Nyrax moved faster than thought. A wave of black fire erupted from his jaws. Unlike normal dragon flame, it burned dark as midnight. It swallowed energy blasts whole, turning them to ash. Guards vanished inside its heat. Nobles screamed as their crystal weapons melted in their claws. Nyrax's wings spread wide. The force alone shattered nearby towers into glittering storms of crystal. He launched into the air. crashing through attackers like a meteor. The throne chamber trembled. Columns collapsed. Ancient walls split apart. The Dragon King charged through the destruction with a roar that shook the city. Father and son collided at the center of the chamber. White flame met black fire. The impact shattered the floor beneath them. The battle was brutal. The king was ancient and powerful, his strength forged through centuries of rule. But Nyrax was something else. Faster, smarter, stronger, and fueled by truth. The king struck with savage force. Nyrax dodged, countered, adapted, learning every movement as they fought. Then came the final moment. The Dragon King lunged for Elias. A desperate attempt. Nyrax saw it, and unleashed everything. His black flames surged like a storm. His claws struck with impossible precision. The king was hurled across the chamber, crashing hard at the foot of the throne. Broken, defeated, Nyrax landed before him, one claw raised. The entire chamber waited. The Dragon King looked up, expecting death. But it never came. Slowly, Nyrax lowered his claw. He stepped back, and spared him. The same mercy they had never shown him. The same mercy that proved everything they believed about black dragons had been a lie. As Nyrax turned to free Elias from his chains, the defeated king understood the truth. The black hatchling they had feared was not their destruction. He was their better future. And by trying to destroy him, they had only ensured his rise to the throne. Morning came slowly over the galactic capital. Golden light spilled across the floating towers. The same towers that had trembled through the night as the throne chamber burned with battle. News of the Dragon King's defeat had already spread through every level of the city. No one could believe it. The black hatchling they had mocked, the one they had called cursed, had defeated the most powerful ruler Velcaris had ever known. And now the final ceremony would decide everything. Across the galaxy, billions watched. Screens lit up on distant planets. In war stations, trading ports, mining colonies, alien villages hidden beneath frozen oceans. For the first time in Imperial history, every living being waited to see who would claim the throne. Inside the restored Crystal Coronation Hall, silence ruled. The white dragon nobles stood in long rows, their heads lowered, their faces pale with fear. Only hours earlier they had expected Nyrax to die. Now they stood waiting for his judgment. Many believed execution would come first, that he would burn them where they stood, that revenge would finally fall upon them. Then the great crystal doors opened, and Nyrax entered. He walked slowly toward the throne. His black scales reflected the morning light like a moving night sky. His crimson eyes burned with calm purpose. There was no rage in his face, no hunger for vengeance, only strength, only certainty. Beside him walked Elias, the human servant they once considered beneath notice, the same human who had risked everything to save a helpless hatchling. Whispers moved through the chamber, some shocked, some ashamed, some unable to understand how history had changed so completely. At the top of the crystal steps rested the imperial crown, forged thousands of years earlier from fallen star metal. Every ruler before Nyrax had been crowned by another. But not him. Nyrax reached forward, lifted the crown himself, and placed it upon his own head. The moment it touched his scales, the chamber lights blazed brighter than ever before. A pulse of energy surged through the hall, as if the Empire itself had accepted him. The black dragon they once rejected was now Galactic Emperor. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Across billions of screens, entire worlds fell silent. Then Nyrax turned to face them all. His voice carried through every star system. Strong, clear, impossible to ignore. His first command was only a single sentence. All laws based on bloodline are abolished. The words struck like thunder. The nobles looked up in disbelief. Shock spread across every face. Some staggered backward as if physically struck. For centuries their empire had been built on bloodline purity, on ancient ranking systems, on judging worth by birth and appearance. And with one command, It was gone. Nyrax continued. No being will ever again be judged by birth, by color, or by origin. The silence that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. It was the sound of history breaking apart and being rebuilt. In homes across distant worlds, beings stared at their screens in stunned wonder. Many had spent generations living beneath systems that told them they were lesser. Now those systems were ending, because of the dragon they had once been taught to fear. But Nyrax was not finished. He turned toward Elias, the human who had stood beside him through rejection, through exile, through every moment of pain. Then before the entire galaxy, he spoke again. I name Elias of Earth as first Galactic Chancellor. The chamber erupted. A human. The species many alien empires had mocked for centuries. Named second only to the Emperor himself. White dragon nobles looked horrified. Others stared in disbelief. But Elias simply stood frozen, unable to speak. Nyrax looked at him and gave a small smile. The same quiet smile Elias had first seen on the Forgotten Moon years ago. It was a simple truth. No throne was ever reached alone. Years passed, and under Nyrax's rule, the galaxy transformed. Worlds once divided by ancient hatred opened their borders. Species that had lived as enemies forged alliances. Trade flourished. Wars ended. Entire civilizations rose into peace for the first time in their histories. The Galactic Empire became stronger than it had ever been. Not through fear, but through unity. And at the center of it all sat the Emperor they had once called cursed. The hatchling they had tried to erase before he ever had a chance to live. Now ruler of the stars. Above his throne, carved into crystal for all to see, were the words that defined his reign. Greatness is not the color you are born with. It is the choices you make. Every noble who had once mocked him was forced to bow before those words. Forced to lower their heads before the black dragon they had feared. The same hatchling once carried toward death. The same child saved by a single act of human courage. And as the stars shined beyond the palace walls, one truth became clear to the entire galaxy. The black dragon baby they had mocked had not only survived. He had become everything they said he never could. The ruler of the stars. The emperor of the galaxy. And the symbol of a future where no one would ever again be judged for being born different.